Today I'm standing here by a Mazda and not a BMW or an electric car for once. This is a 2022 Mazda 3 with all-wheel drive. What's interesting about this generation of the Mazda 3 is that it's quite controversial, especially the hatchback version. The styling has been very controversial with people over the past couple of years. I'll tell you how I feel about it in a second. But first of all, it's in what I think is probably one of the best modern car colors out there, which is Mazda's Soul Red. In every single shade or area of, okay, that came out bad. At every single angle and every single level of light, I think this color is absolutely gorgeous. And if I were to have a Mazda 3 or any Mazda at all, it would definitely be in this Soul Red color. I think it's fantastic. But I think the Mazda 3 could be concrete proof that the somewhat premium, compact commuter car is still very much with us today. The styling has been the most controversial point of discussion when it comes to the new Mazda 3, especially the hatchback version. And I might get some blowback for this, but I actually really like how it looks. This huge D-pillar back here is, I mean, it's massive, like completely unnecessarily large, but I don't know, I kind of like it because maybe it's just the fact that the whole thing is kind of smooth, and maybe because it has no hard angles, no over-designed components, but I don't know, I just really like how it looks. The Mazda 3 sedan is also another option, and that's for people who don't really like the styling of the hatchback and they want to go with something more mainstream, which I understand, but this is how I would have a Mazda 3. I really like the way this car looks. This back part is the part that has been the most controversial with everybody. It's the part that everybody talks about because it's polarizing. I've got nice chrome trim around here, which kind of gives it more of a premium vibe. And walking up front, it's got the classic Mazda corporate front end, which I'm not a big fan of, really, because it looks the same on every single model except for the MX-5 maybe, but it's just a strange shape and the grill's too big and the headlights are too small. I don't like the front of the Mazda 3 at all. But again, it's in Soul Red and it's the better looking hatchback, so I can't complain too much. There are definitely uglier cars out there, uglier commuter cars, that's for sure. So right now, the Mazda 3 is in its 4th generation, and you can get it as a base model front-wheel drive with, I think it's 187 horsepower. And that front-wheel drive model you can actually get with a manual transmission, which is cool, but I don't think a single person is going for that option right now. I've heard the manual isn't very good, and I've never seen a manual 4th gen Mazda 3, which is making the enthusiast half of me feel kind of sad. But for most people, especially with a harsh winter climate, the base Mazda 3 2.5 liter all-wheel drive, like this one right here, only available with an automatic transmission. Hey, at least it's not a CVT, and it comes with all-wheel drive, so it's an all-season car. Then you can step up to the Mazda 3 Turbo, which has a turbocharged version of the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, which makes 250 horsepower, and I think it is standard all-wheel drive. Should be, because 250 horsepower going to the front wheels, not a thing that I'm a fan of, so they're not Honda. So this is proof that Mazda seems to be really setting themselves apart in the Japanese car market, especially from other manufacturers that tend to make 300 horsepower front-wheel drive hot hatchbacks that are overstyled and just strange looking and come with a lot of wheel hop, torque steer, all the good stuff, which isn't an enjoyable experience. And I really respect Mazda for that, because they're kind of setting themselves apart as more of a premium option in the Japanese car market, but they're still reliable, except for the rotaries. So let's have a look around and check out some of the practicality, and for once we can actually look at an engine, so let's do that right now. Let's avert our eyes at the ungainly looking front end as we search for the hood latch, which is, I'm sure, under here. I'll find it. There we go. And we have a look under and we see Skyactiv G, which means something. When I look around in here, it actually doesn't look too inaccessible, because anybody who knows me knows I have experience with front-wheel drive based transverse engines, and I'm not really a fan. There appears to be a decent level of room for working under here, which I don't really think people work on modern cars as much anymore as they used to. They just take them to their local Mazda dealership when the apex seals go. But there are no apex seals on here to worry about, but it is a Mazda, so you need to know where to top off your oil, and that's right here. Should be easy. If you spill, it's okay. It's just a plastic engine cover. So 180 something horsepower. I think it's 187, which for a compact commuter car is good. It's good enough. Most people who buy cars like this probably won't be wanting for much more power, which is why I don't think I've seen a lot of Mazda 3 turbos driving around. One other thing about the Mazda 3 turbo that I like is that it's really understated looking, so it's hard to tell what it is, which I always respect when car manufacturers, especially today, do. So yeah, it's a 4-cylinder, 2.5 liter, not really that special. So we'll move on to the cargo area. That was a bit undramatic, but we open it and we see plenty of room for your Halloween decorations and work uniforms and whatever else is in here. The rear seats fold down, which is what you want. Most hatchbacks you'll find with a bunch of crap thrown in the back. That's what makes a hatchback great. You can just chuck everything in the back and not really think about it. But it's a pretty small storage area, but it's okay. Let's check out the rear seat room of the Mazda 3 hatchback, and honestly, it's not as bad as I was expecting it to be for a car of this price. Decent amount of legroom and a little bit of headroom, but not a lot. Fold down center armrest here for some cup holders. No vents or anything. A transmission tunnel, which is what you'd expect for a car that comes with all-wheel drive. And some really, really small windows. This rear quarter window right here is really, really tiny. It's probably the tiniest one that I've ever seen. And honestly, it's pretty nice back here. I mean, it's got leather, and again, it's not interesting, but it's just okay. Getting in and out is pretty easy too. So we'll step into the front of the Mazda 3, and again, for a Japanese commuter car, it's actually a nice interior. It's a little bit strange because the fact that this panel right here is so large and the screen is kind of quite far away from you and small, because Mazda kind of sees through the problems with people being told to get off their phones while they're driving, but then they have massive iPad screens right there in their car to distract them anyways. So Mazda likes to put the screens up here on the dashboard where it's closer to your line of sight, and then you control it with this classic BMW iDrive style pie dish thing, which has been part of the car industry for a long time. So this infotainment system is... Are you done? Okay. There's nothing really particularly interesting or exciting about this infotainment system. It's just generic. It feels kind of old-fashioned and behind what a lot of car manufacturers these days are doing, but it gives you the basics: information, entertainment, making calls, navigation, settings, but you can't put things up on the screen at once. It's not a touch screen. It's not very intuitive. It'll be okay enough for me to drive every day. I wouldn't mind it at all, but people that are coming out of something like a Tesla, they might not be impressed with this infotainment system at all. It's a nice premium feel on the inside here, but there's nothing really special about this interior, but that's what it's meant for. It's meant for driving every day and commuting. For me, what's the most important thing about any car that I ever drive is how it drives. So starting a parking lot, which is a good opportunity to test turning circle and stuff like that. And yeah, so the first thing I really notice is that I feel a lot closer to the ground than I expected to be. I mean, it's not an SUV or a crossover or anything. It's just a hatchback, but I feel pretty low, and I do notice a slight drawback when I look behind me for changing lanes to check my blind spot with the styling, which is the fact that that D-pillar is, again, it's absolutely massive, and that kind of takes away a little bit from visibility, which is not what you want out of a car to drive every day. I do have a nice heads-up display up in front of me, but as far as I can tell, all it displays is my speed, but that's, you know, I'll take it. That's an interesting thing. Turn signal feel is really nice. It's a really soft, nice click. Anybody that drives a Mazda, a brand new Mazda, has no excuse to not use their turn signal because it's actually something that you'd want to do. Very satisfying. It corners decently flat. Oh, yeah, it's such a nice sound. Again, low ground clearance. So we're gonna open it up here a little bit. Unspectacular. It's not fast, but what do you expect from less than 200 horsepower? Again, here's a little bit of chance to test the cornering. Yeah, that corner's really flat and smooth and comfortable, just like the way it builds power. Like I said, it's not fast, but the speed builds up really smoothly, which I like. It's not exciting, but it's enjoyable, and it's just easy and comfortable, which I like. So, I mean, these are all the qualities that you want in a daily driver type vehicle. Materials that I'm feeling and everything touching, everything feels beautiful, which is surprising for considering my experience with Japanese cars. Their material quality on the inside, it's okay for the time period, but in the Mazda 3, it's actually really nice interior. And transmission is smart, shifts smoothly, surprisingly luxurious for what you'd expect. I'd be curious to know what the turbo is like and what the manual transmission base model is like. But this is the way most people buy their Mazda 3s. I think the closest competitor to a car like this is the brand new Acura Integra, which also you can get with a manual transmission. Has the engine from the Civic Si, so it's more power, 200 horsepower, but no available all-wheel drive, no extra high-performance model yet, but I think there's a Type S in the works. Yeah, that's rumored. I think the Integra looks better. I haven't driven the Integra, but I think the Mazda is a really good option, and it's really good for just driving every day. It feels nice and smooth and all the good stuff, everything you want from a daily driver. And I've got a little indicator showing me that I had a person in my blind spot on the heads-up display, so it's not just that. Yeah, it's not a good sound, that's for sure. It kind of does give off that sound of a cheap commuter car when you're thrashing it up a hill, which is not an enjoyable sound in the slightest bit. But then you flick on that turn signal and you hear that soft, nice, beautiful, luxurious click, and all your complaints about the noise of the engine are gone. I think the Mazda 3 would make a really good base car for an EV. Once they stop screwing around with stupid things like the MX-30, which makes no sense and nobody's buying it. Once Mazda starts taking the EV market more seriously and stops copying the BMW i3 shamelessly, maybe if they made a Mazda 3 EV, that would be a really, really good car, and I think that would sell a lot. Because nothing about this gasoline powertrain is exciting in any way, but what it does really well is smoothness and comfort and usability. But that's kind of what you'd expect from an electric car. So if Mazda ever comes out with a Mazda 3 EV, that would be a really good car to drive. But a summary of the Mazda 3 with all-wheel drive. It's unspectacular, but it's a really, really nice everyday commuter vehicle. In my opinion, it's comfortable and doesn't really have many bad points in the way of practicality. The infotainment system is a letdown, and the visibility sucks. But other than that, I think it's a really, really nice everyday driver car. So that, I think I'm gonna end this video there. So appreciate everybody that came to watch, and I'll be seeing everybody in the next video. So everybody have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.